Hey there YouTube, welcome to Big Mike Beard Wisdom. So today we're prepping for the turkey, and it's one of those things where I really like doing a brine, and brines really seem like they make the turkey much better than not doing it, and it's one of those things the first time we did it, it was amazing the difference. So it takes a bit of prep, but it's not too bad, especially if you wind up finding a brine that you like. So I really like Alton Brown's brine that he does from the Good Eats roast turkey episode, and his stuff basically breaks down. So a 14 to 16 pound turkey. For the brine, you're looking for a cup of kosher salt, a half a cup of light brown sugar, 1 gallon of vegetable stock, 1 tablespoon of black peppercorns, 1.5 teaspoons allspice berries, 1.5 teaspoons chopped candied ginger, and then he has more stuff in there for like the aromatics for once the turkey's ready to be cooked and stuff. Now, he does mention that you want to use the full sodium version of the vegetable broth or stock. And unfortunately, we couldn't find any. It was just one of those things. You know, with the state of the world, sometimes it's tough to find what you need exactly. But we did luck out and actually find crystallized ginger, which is pretty much the same thing as candied ginger. So we should be good as far as that stuff goes. And then look at the nutritional facts. You can kind of see. So 4 servings per container. Serving size 1 cup. This is a 32 ounce container. So in order to fix the low sodium, we know there's 128 fluid ounces in a gallon, 8 fluid ounces in a cup. So 32 fluid ounce container has 4 1 cup or 8 fluid ounce servings with 120 milligrams of sodium per serving, or 480 milligrams of sodium per 32 ounce container. And you can find that just here on the label, so you can see serving size 1 cup, sodium 120 milligrams. And the crazy thing is that once you look at what a normal one has, it's a drastic reduction in the amount of sodium. So I googled vegetable broth real fast, and I found a comparable sized container. So this is another 32 ounce container. So Swanson's 100% natural gluten-free vegetable broth, so not low sodium, has 800 milligrams of sodium per 1 cup serving, or 3,200 milligrams of sodium per 32 ounce container. That gives us a difference of 2,720 milligrams of sodium per container, or 10,880 milligrams of sodium per gallon. Now, if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought sodium's bad. In a brine, sodium's kind of one of those things where it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be left in the water or the brine itself. Some of it's going to get into the turkey, but it's not like you're actually putting that directly into the turkey, so it's not going to get the full amount of salt that you're going to put in and everything. And then on here, you can see the Morton coarse kosher salt has 480 milligrams of sodium in 1/4 teaspoon. So there's only more or less 1/4 teaspoon in 1 serving of the low sodium broth that we picked up, which is kind of an interesting coincidence. So basically, we just need to step up how much of the kosher salt we put in to equal out the right amount of sodium. Now the funny thing is, we're going to be putting in quite a good bit of kosher salt in here, and to make up that 10,880 milligrams that we're missing, I divided by 480, so that'll tell me how many 1/4 teaspoons we need. So we need 22.67 1/4 teaspoons. Then you divide that by 4 to get whole teaspoons. We just need 5.67 whole teaspoons. To make it a little bit easier, I divided it by 3, and that gives me almost 2 tablespoons, so 1.89 tablespoons. Now with what I'm doing, we're going to have a 20-pound turkey and a 17-pound turkey, so they're going to be a little bit above this, so there's going to be a lot of fuzzy logic that I do with this. So if we go up and over the amount a little bit, I'm going to be okay with it. And it's one of those things for where we're putting in 1 cup of kosher salt, and then 2 additional tablespoons. They don't have to be heaping, but I figure seeing as it's coarse salt, might as well go with a bigger spoon, because there's going to be a little bit more area for the air to be sitting in pocket-wise maybe in one of these and for it to be off a little bit. But again, we're running bigger turkeys, so really we can be a little bit extra heavy-handed with it. And then to measure everything out, I'm just going to use a half cup measuring cup, a tablespoon measuring spoon, and a teaspoon measuring spoon. And the reason why I'm only going to use the half cup is because, you know, the light brown sugar takes only a half a cup, and no point in dirtying another cup. And then, like I said before, we've got 2 birds this year that we're doing. So one's a 17 pounder, the other one's a 20 pounder. So we're doing 2 brines. So I'm going to mix these up kind of simultaneously and then cook them sequentially. So one after the other. And the reason why I'm not just cooking everything in one stock pot simultaneously is because I'm not 100% sure as you empty this out if you're going to get the same amount of flavor from, say, the top half as you would the bottom half. So there's a chance that if I do one single big brine, that one turkey's going to get a whole lot of flavor and the other one's maybe just getting a whole bunch of broth. First up is the allspice berries. So I've just got this whole allspice. You can see it takes 1.5 teaspoons allspice, and it doesn't exactly sit super flat because, you know, they're round. So it's one of those things where I'm just going to take this, put this in this one. So both of these have a slightly heaping amount of allspice berries in them. And then for the remaining part, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it because there's not too many of these guys left, and try and put an equal amount in both sides. So essentially with that little bit, it kind of came out to just a touch over 1 full teaspoon of it. So I'm just going to take it, kind of split her down the center. That side's going in one brine, that side's going in the other. And then next up is the black peppercorns. So you can kind of see a little bit of a heaping one. Then again, 1 tablespoon. So each one of these will get 1 tablespoon. They are remarkably similar to the allspice berries in appearance. So that if you didn't know any better and you were just mixing these up, you'd be like, uh-oh. Uh-oh. And then essentially the first thing that'll be going in the pot will be the vegetable stock. So I'm just going to shake these up a little bit, kind of make sure I got all the good stuff and flavor floating around in it as opposed to, you know, being set out the bottom. And then pour them on in. Alright. So now that I got the full gallon in there, if you've got a big fancy pot like this works out pretty good. Otherwise, if you've got just like a really big normal pot, sometimes you can get away with either doing this in like halves or something. But luckily we got this. This is going to take a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. Hopefully this is the right burner. So that way this gets going, because it's going to take a good bit to get that good and warm. In the meanwhile, we can continue on with the candied ginger. So the candied ginger is going to be just a little bit weird, because it's 1.5 teaspoons, so it's a small spoon. You can kind of put it next to the candied ginger pieces. These are some pretty big pieces compared to that spoon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and chop it kind of smaller, see how much I can kind of stuff into that to see if we're able to do whole pieces, or, you know, if we're just going to use some of that fuzzy logic and just go 1 piece per version of the brine. So I just took a paring knife, cut this down into like little strips real quick. It's kind of soft, almost like a gummy. I mean, not really like a gummy, but it's one of those things where you can squish it in pretty good. Kind of knocking kind of air out, that way you have a good measurement. So I'm pretty sure this one is thicker than that one. So I'm going to bet somehow these 2 pieces will wind up equaling out. So I'll put this one in one brine, probably this one in the next. And then brines are always kind of interesting because you can kind of go your own way depending on what you want to do. One year I did a bunch of like orange kind of flavored stuff for the turkey, and one year we did apple cider. But even on the Morton kosher salt thing, they even have another turkey brine recipe that calls for 1 cup of white wine. So that's kind of interesting. Alright, so we've got pepper, candied ginger, allspice berries in there. That's been running a little bit. I've gone ahead and given it a good stir. So it's warming up, but it's definitely not, you know, ready to boil anytime soon. So before we do the 1 cup of kosher salt, we'll go ahead and do the 2 tablespoons or 1.89 tablespoons to get the salt or sodium amount caught up. And then you can really kind of see how coarse that salt is. So I figure there'll be a slightly less margin of error, even though we're going for sort of a fuzzy logic method on this. And then for the 1 full cup, we'll go ahead and we'll add that right into the pot. This one being just a half a cup. Well, probably slightly less than half a cup. Then we'll give it a quick stir, and we add the brown sugar. And then again, it's light brown sugar, which I think has like a little bit of a lighter taste than the darker brown sugar. So again, half a cup, going in the pot. Oh, splash! All right, so that's stirred up pretty good with the salt and the brown sugar. You can see it's starting to steam, so I'm going to go ahead, drop in the rest of it. Get that mixed up a little bit more. And then again, we just have to bring this up to a boil and then remove it from the heat. And then you want to have a good safe bucket or vessel that you're going to put it in. And we've never done them with these brine bags before, but this will be an interesting trick to try this year. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how this winds up going, because I'm wondering if I can get the brine bag into the bucket and the turkey into the brine bag all fairly easily, or if it's going to be a bit of a fight. You just need to make sure you've got a food safe bucket. That way you're not introducing any fun and exciting chemicals into your body. Alright, so I give it a quick stir again, and you can tell it's getting really close to boiling. Because it's starting to boil right in the very center. You can still see a little bit of the candied ginger and all the peppercorn and allspice berries floating around. But that should be pretty much good to go once it hits boiling. And then all we have to do is just shut the heat off on a gas stove. If you've got a electric stove, you want to remove from the heat because that burner is still going to be kind of hot. The only thing to be careful for is these handles might be a touch warm. That one's not too bad. This one though, yeah, you're going to need a pot holder for that one. Alright, so now let's talk about the buckets or the vessels. So I've got those brine bags on this 5-gallon bucket, and it's kind of nice because it looks like it flips down around the sides a little bit. So that should be nice and easy. The other one's going to go in this cooler, and then the brine bag in here doesn't quite fill it up all the way, but it's still a pretty good size anyway. So hopefully that'll be easy to get something into and not wind up missing and then getting funky turkey stuff for brine around it. And for storage, essentially we're going to be bringing the 2 turkeys out here. So you can kind of see out here in the garage, it is just a touch above freezing. So really it should be kind of one of those things where maybe it was a little bit warmer. I bet it probably helps the brine kind of work through a little bit if it was just a touch warmer. But here in Minnesota, this is kind of the best bet for now. The really cool thing about the brine bag is that essentially, once you get the brine in there with the gallon of iced water and the turkey, you can kind of squeeze down on the bag a bit to get as much air out as you can. That way you got brine almost to the tippy top, of it. So most of the turkey, if not all the turkey, will be covered. And then you do want to flip the turkey in the course of the brining process. So this guy's pretty much all set to go in the garage. Just going to throw the lid on it just so it's extra super duper safe. And then with the garage being, you know, just slightly above freezing, it'll be interesting to see how this winds up turning out. But once again, even though that turkey was in there for a substantial amount of time, it's still not completely defrosted. So I pulled all these chunks of ice. You can see where the neck's at. There's a fair amount of ice in there too. So this came out of like the internal cavity. So kind of one of those things, not quite fully defrosted yet. So it'll be interesting to see how much the brine penetrates. But at least turkey number 1's done. Now we gotta start the brine for turkey number 2. And then in the off chance for some reason you're cooking 2 turkeys and you're doing 2 brines and you're gonna do the brines simultaneously. So luckily I'm not doing them simultaneously. They're gonna be one after the other. But man, that almost tapped out the entire ice maker's tray. So if we would have done 2 of them at the exact same time, cooking them like the same day and stuff like that, that way they're in the brine the exact same amount of time, we definitely would have had to have bought ice or had some, you know, pre-prepped, maybe like Ziploc baggies of ice set off to the side. That way we had enough. All this stuff is just for 1 turkey, but I set it up that way I've got 2 brines pre-prepped. So now I've got everything I need here. I just have to do the salt, the brown sugar, and all the vegetable broth. One more time in the pot. Or the breech, depending on what you want to call it. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like, subscribe, and I'll check you next time.